Good evening. This is the Transfer Show. Thomas Sheth and Michael Bridge are alongside me to bring you a definitive roundup of the day's transfer news. So we have very interesting developments to start off with at Arsenal tonight, and a move that could affect 2, maybe 3 players, and it's to do with their pursuit of a goalkeeper. So talk us through it, Dharmesh.
A bit of a domino effect here. Arsenal close now to finalising a deal to sign the Brentford goalkeeper David Raya. He's entered the final year of his contract, as we know, and the clubs have been working on a compromise on a fee. We've been hearing Thomas Frank publicly saying he's one of the top 4 goalkeepers in the Premier League last season, so he's worth around £40 million. I don't think Arsenal wanted to pay that much, but we think the compromise is close to being reached at around £30 million or that kind of ballpark figure. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta, we know, is a long-term admirer of David Raya. He's tried to sign David Raya previously, but has been unsuccessful. It looks like now he finally could be getting his man, and people will be wondering what happened to Aaron Ramsdale now. Well, such is Arsenal and Mikel Arteta's ambition that he's bringing in, effectively, another number 1 goalkeeper to provide competition to Aaron Ramsdale. So the question is, why are they doing that? What happens to Matt Turner? Well, as the Raya deal nears completion, we know that Nottingham Forest are very, very close now to finalising a deal for Matt Turner, the US international. We think that Matt Turner has gone to Arsenal and said, look, I'm a US international, I want to keep my place in the squad. He's not getting too much first-team action at Arsenal. He probably feels he could get more at Nottingham Forest, even though Forest are still after another goalkeeper in Dean Henderson, and we expect Henderson to come in as the number 1. But we think that Turner will probably think, I've got more of a chance of getting more first-team action there. He's had a medical already at Nottingham Forest. There's a cautious optimism now that both deals can be completed within the next 24 hours. And what is interesting is the Premier League opener on Saturday midday is Arsenal against Nottingham Forest, and that means that Matt Turner, moving from Arsenal to Nottingham Forest, could be playing at the Emirates in his first game for Forest.
OK. From the bottom of the pitch for Arsenal to the top of the pitch for Tottenham, of course that means Harry Kane, Michael. News of a new Bayern bid. Could that be enough to tempt Tottenham?
Well, they want to submit a new offer, David. That's what we're hearing from our colleagues in Germany in the past hour, either today or tomorrow, for around €110 million plus add-ons. Now, that's £94.6 million. Do I think that's enough to tempt Daniel Levy in to selling Harry Kane? Personally, I don't think so, but it's not down to me. It's down to Tottenham Hotspur and Daniel Levy. But what do we know? What we do know is 5 days till Spurs begin their campaign against Brentford, live on Sky Sports Super Sunday. And what we have told you, Harry Kane wants this done, wants it sorted one way or another this week. There are reports that he's leaning towards staying at Tottenham as well. But what we do know is as well 2 things. He's fully focused on Tottenham Hotspur, business as usual, and he's really enjoyed the last few weeks under the new head coach, Ange Postecoglou. Spurs won 5-1 against Shakhtar Donetsk on Sunday. Who scored 4 goals? Harry Kane. I know it's a friendly, but it was another message to say. Tottenham Hotspur without Harry Kane is a scary thought for Spurs fans. There's many fans saying, look, I don't care how much money you're going to give us for Harry Kane. It's not our money. We want to watch the best players at Tottenham Hotspur next season to stand any chance of getting back into that top 4. That has to have Harry Kane. And you've got to look at it from another point of view as well. If Spurs start the season now without Harry Kane, that's going to be a serious rebuild. And Spurs are spending now, but they will have to replace him at some stage. Where would they finish this season without Harry Kane? You'd be a brave person to predict it. However, if he stayed and Spurs did have a lot of ifs and buts here, but if Spurs did have a successful season, Harry Kane, they get into the top 4 or 5 places, that's around 100 million potential in revenue anyway. Exactly. So, look, Harry Kane wants this done by the weekend. Will it happen? We'll see.
Yeah, it's a really delicate situation, though, because I know Harry Kane wants his future sorted out before the season starts. But there is the proper deadline, which is September the 1st at 11 p.m. Now, if Bayern Munich then come in with a bid that would have been acceptable to Tottenham, it'll be interesting to see what will happen if that happens after the season starts. But for Ange Postecoglou, I'm sure he just wants clarity one way or another very quickly. Now, if Harry Kane is going to stay but not sign a new contract in this transfer window, that puts Tottenham in a little bit of a position as well. Do they then go back to Bayern and accept that bid and say, look, Harry, we've accepted it, it's up to you now to decide whether you want to go or not? Or do they risk keeping Harry Kane without a contract going into the final year of his contract. But you know what? It can't be ruled out that midway through the season, if, as Michael alluded to there, he's enjoying the training, he's enjoying the direction Tottenham are going in, who's to say he won't sign a new contract in the middle of next season? But that's not guaranteed, and that's the risk that Tottenham are going to have to weigh up. Let him go into the final year of his contract as a Tottenham player and try and convince him to stay, but knowing that if they don't, then the worst case scenario could present itself next summer, where he goes for no money at all to a Premier League rival.
Yeah, all outcomes still on the table here. Let's go to another Harry, and that is Maguire. His future uncertain. But Dharmesh, I sense momentum moving towards a move away from Old Trafford.
Potentially. Talks are continuing between West Ham United and Manchester United, not only for Harry Maguire, but for Scott McTominay as well. Yesterday was a very, very busy day as far as this potential deal or deals were concerned. West Ham United went in with two separate bids of £30 million each for Harry Maguire and for Scott McTominay. It's understood those figures mean that West Ham United are closer potentially to a compromise on Maguire rather than Scott McTominay. Discussions over a potential deal for Harry Maguire are said to be positive, with West Ham slightly encouraged that Harry Maguire appears to be open to potentially moving from Old Trafford to the London Stadium. And look, while our negotiations are ongoing over McTominay, I think West Ham are looking at the gap potentially of what they are prepared to pay and what Manchester United want, and just saying, if that can't be done, we've got to keep our options open. So they are looking at alternatives. James Ward-Prowse is the name that will not go away. I've been told not to rule out West Ham United going back in for the Southampton captain after they had a £30 million bid rejected last month. OK,
so West Ham very much in the market for midfielders and on one arrival potentially close at the London Stadium.
Look, it's not a summer without Premier League clubs looking at top-class Ajax players, and that's what West Ham have done, and they're moving very quick. Edson Alvarez arrived in London this morning ahead of starting his West Ham United medical. Now, West Ham are hopeful of getting this deal done in time for their match ahead of Saturday's difficult opener against Bournemouth. Now, the deal will see West Ham pay Ajax around £32 million, plus £2 million in performance-related add-ons. Personal terms agreed. West Ham fans, you're getting closer to your first sign.
OK, let's stick with midfielders. Romeo Lavia, now Southampton playing at Gillingham, I think, in the League Cup tonight. He's in demand. Will he be involved in that game, Dharmesh?
We're told not. We're told he will not be in the squad for tonight's League Cup tie at Gillingham. I don't know how much you can read into that, because I think Southampton will be making a lot of changes from the squad that went to Hillsborough for that victory over Sheffield Wednesday on Friday. Lavia was in that squad, but he was an unused substitute in that game. As far as Liverpool are concerned, they've had 3 bids for Romeo Lavia, all knocked back, the latest of which was worth around £45 million. We think Southampton are holding firm on £50 million. However, talks are ongoing between the two clubs. Now, when a bid is rejected, but we're hearing that the talks are ongoing, that gives you a clue that maybe there is a willingness to get the deal done, and perhaps there's a small gap to fill. But we don't know how much of that £45 million was a guaranteed payment from Liverpool, so they could still be quite a distance away from what Southampton do want. But the fact that talks are continuing, I think Liverpool will continue to try and get Romeo Lavia over the line. Personal terms not expected to be a problem. There was interest from Chelsea as well. Personal terms not expected to be a problem for Chelsea either, but Liverpool making all the running with regard to bidding.
Yeah, and let's not forget the effect on Southampton. They're looking to get back to the Premier League at the first attempt. Ward-Prowse, Lavia, you would imagine, would be part of that push, but they could end up losing both this window. Talking about midfielders, and there's no midfielder, I suppose, that's garnered more column inches and on their time, especially at high price, than Moises Kaisado. So let's talk a little bit about this. Again, we know that Chelsea are interested. What's the latest?
We're told that talks are ongoing between Chelsea and Brighton over the signing of the Brighton midfielder. Chelsea, we are told, are expected to go back in with an improved offer for Moises Kaisado. He, however, has made it clear to Brighton that he does want to make the move to Stamford Bridge. Now, we're hearing about a valuation of around £100 million for Moises Kaisado. Chelsea have had an £80 million bid rejected. That was their latest offer. We think Brighton value Kaisado in the same way that West Ham United valued Declan Rice, which is why we've got this figure of £100 million. But I was told earlier on today by sources close to the deal that Chelsea actually haven't been told officially by Brighton what their asking price would be. So it's almost like Chelsea keep going back with bids and they're getting rebuffed, but they don't actually know what kind of bid is going to change Brighton's mind. What is clear is this feels a little bit different from January to now. In January, the message we were getting, Moises Kaisado is not for sale. He's not for sale. He is staying at Brighton. The message we are getting this time is nobody has met our valuation. There's a subtle difference there,
Totally
which
different,
might
isn't it?
suggest
Yeah.
that if someone does, then the deal is well and truly on. Roberto De Zerbi, the Brighton manager, whenever he gets asked a question about Moises Kaisado, he can't guarantee he will be at the club. So as it stands, he remains a Brighton player. That's until they get a deal, potentially, that Brighton will be interested in.
OK, let's talk about proper headline makers. We're sort of ramping it up now, and I guess there's no greater than that in terms of what he's done at Barcelona, what he's done with Brazil, than Neymar. And we know of the drama at PSG this summer, Michael. Now, what's happening with Neymar?
Could be a documentary, PSG, this summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite unbelievable. But PSG are willing to listen to offers for Neymar. Offers between 50 and 80 million, depending, though, I like this, depending on who the buyer is. But it will be considered for Neymar, who, of course, is still the most expensive player in the world, £220 million. His release clause was paid. We know Kylian Mbappe is still for sale or available for loan. PSG aren't commenting, but that's what we know so far. PSG will listen to offers for Neymar. Real change at PSG.
My goodness, you see, that is such a seismic change from Messi, Mbappe and Neymar to potentially all three being out the door at the Parc des Princes. OK, coming up next, we go through the day's done deals. Plus, we've got an update from Manchester City here on The Transfer Show. Yes, you are watching The Transfer Show. Let's focus on some done deals that have gone through today. Michael, we're going to start off with you with two at Tottenham.
Yes, Mickey van der Ven has completed his move to Tottenham Hotspur from Wolfsburg. 6-year deal for Van der Ven. Spurs paying initial 34.5 million, rising to a potential 43 million. He's very quick, David. 22.3 miles per hour, his speeds in the Bundesliga last season, just below Kyle Walker. And a striker has come in for Spurs, Alejio Vélez from Rosario Central, Argentinian under-20 international. There's plenty of people asking, is he going to go back there on loan? We're told he isn't. Another new signing from Spurs a few days ago, Ashley Phillips from Blackburn. He's on the bench tonight at Barcelona. OK, and staying with done deals, one that we were expecting, this time gone through at Newcastle. Who is it? Yeah, Tino Livramento has joined Newcastle United from Southampton. It's a 5-year contract, a fee of around £32 million. Eddie Howe, someone he's looked at for some time, exciting right back from Southampton. And they've signed some very good players. Well, Harvey Barnes has had a really good pre-season. And Sandro Tonali, an exciting midfield pairing with Bruno Guimaraes. Is it enough for Premier League and Champions League? We'll wait and see. OK, let's switch our focus. We spoke about Manchester United a little bit earlier on. Darwish, you've got news of another possible outgoing from Old Trafford.
Yeah, we know they brought in Rasmus Højlund, Andre Onana and Mason Mount. The bulk of their incoming transfer activity is done. I think the focus will probably go towards departures. We know that Fred is into the final year of his contract. We expect Fulham to reopen talks with Manchester United. They were interested earlier in the window, but not at the prices being quoted. But I did say at the time, let's wait till later on in the window because maybe Fulham can see an opportunity to maybe get Fred again. Galatasaray tried to sign Fred. They couldn't agree on a fee, and I don't think they could agree on personal terms either. So that one's gone on the back burner just now. He hasn't actually featured in pre-season since July the 19th, Fred, when he came off the bench against Lyon in that 1-0 victory when Donny van der Beek scored. And talking of Donny van der Beek, negotiations ongoing between Real Sociedad and Manchester United over a potential permanent deal for Donny van der Beek, though a loan and an option with an obligation, that's under discussion as well.
Let's go back to incomings, though, because you mentioned that the bulk of the work had been done, but there's one name that still gets mentioned at the moment. That's Sofian Amrabat, isn't it?
So if Manchester United can create space in their squad and recoup a bit of money, I think they're ready to do a deal for Sofian Amrabat from Fiorentina. Fiorentina know that Manchester United are interested. Manchester United are very encouraged that Sofian Amrabat wants to make that move to Old Trafford. He's a player Erik ten Hag knows really, really well. And we know in the past couple of windows, the players that have come into Manchester United are players that Erik ten Hag has either worked with before or knows very, very well. This guy has played under Erik ten Hag before at Utrecht, and we know how impressive he was at the World Cup for Morocco. So definitely one to watch, but it could depend on potential departures.
OK, Michael, you've got news on Jed Spence at Tottenham.
Yeah, I can confirm reports that Tottenham will listen to offers for Jed Spence. Remember, I mean, we spent the majority of transfer shows last year talking about Jed Spence's potential move to Tottenham. But Antonio Conte didn't select him. He selected Emerson Royal and others over him. He then went on a loan deal to Rennes. He's obviously come back, spent pre-season with Spurs, but he's up against Emerson Royal, Pedro Porro. Now, it looks as if he might have to move on. Whether it's a loan or a permanent, we will wait and see. So he, alongside many others, Ange Postecoglou said he needs to trim his squad. Like Mikel Arteta says all the time, Ange Postecoglou has said it. There's a few central defenders Spurs will want to move on as well. Joe Rodon, potentially. Japhet Tanganga, Tanguy Ndombele, central midfield. So it's going to be still a busy few weeks at Spurs, incomings and outgoings. But Jed Spence is our latest one. I understand Spurs will listen to offers for. And reports of a possible swap deal involving Brennan Johnson at Forest. Maybe something down the line. Not 100%. He's a player Spurs like.
Yeah.
Of course, Nottingham Forest loves Jed Spence. Might be putting 2 and 2 together at the moment. We maybe see later on in the window. But he's a player Spurs like.
Okay. Just on Brennan Johnson, though, Brentford had gone in with a bid much earlier on in this transfer window, which Nottingham Forest described as insulting and derisory. And we think that Nottingham Forest, to even consider any kind of offers for Brennan Johnson, it would have to be in the region of £50 million.
OK. Let's talk about Callum Hudson-Odoi. Now, we've talked about him potentially leaving Chelsea for many, many windows.
Yes.
Now. Are we any closer to that being the case?
Well, it's coming to a head now because he's into the final year of his contract. Yeah. He's not going to sign a new contract. He wants to go. He's expected to leave in this window. And it's Fulham again who are coming closer to an agreement with Chelsea over the signing of Hudson-Odoi. We think that a lot of the aspects of the deal have been agreed in principle. And we think, crucially, that personal terms aren't expected to be a problem. But the all-important fee, that is where the issue lies. Fulham are prepared to pay a certain amount. Chelsea wants slightly higher. If they can come to a compromise, I'm told that they are edging closer and they are going in that direction, then it's still hoped that Callum Hudson-Odoi will become a Fulham player before the end of the window.
Of course, you mentioned Harry Kane and thinking about swapping Tottenham for Bayern Munich. What about Kyle Walker potentially swapping Man City for Bayern Munich?
I think Thomas Tuchel definitely wants to shop in the Premier League, doesn't he? Because he likes Declan Rice as well. But what we can tell you is Kyle Walker is seriously considering signing a new contract on offer at Manchester City. A new deal has been on the table for several weeks. And we've obviously been reporting Bayern's strong interest in Walker since earlier in the summer. But this would be a big plus for Pep Guardiola because he's made no secret how crucial he still feels Kyle Walker is to that Manchester City squad. I was watching Man City on Sunday, David, and they still look great. But they don't want to get light, do they? They've let Ilkay Gundogan go to Barcelona. They've let Riyad Mahrez go to Saudi Arabia. You don't want to get too light, do you?
Well, I think it's interesting when you think about, last season, last summer, and what happened with Zinchenko, and not just him, but other players that left the club. You kind of thought, actually, Gabriel Jesus, are they going to really suffer? They in the end, they managed to get over the line. No. What about Bernardo Silva? How does he play into all of this?
Again, another player Pep Guardiola does not want to say goodbye to, despite them getting on so well. He's considering a new contract at Manchester City, and Manchester City would like him to do so. He's less than 2 years remaining on his current deal. PSG and Barcelona are interested. Let's see where that goes, but we think he'll probably stay at City.
Let's go back to Chelsea, shall we? Because it's been confirmed that Christopher Nkunku will be out for what the club are describing as an extended amount of time. Really not what Mauricio Pochettino wanted, but could that actually affect their attempts to sign a number 9? And what's the situation with Dusan Vlahovic and Romelu Lukaku?
So we're told that talks are ongoing between Chelsea and Juventus over a potential swap deal, but it is not as simple as Lukaku goes from Chelsea to Juventus and Chelsea get Dusan Vlahovic, because Juventus see Vlahovic as more valuable than Lukaku. He's 23 years of age. Lukaku is 30. So what they do want is Lukaku plus money for them to release Dusan Vlahovic. Now, that is where the discussions are centred upon, because they have to find an agreement on what that amount is going to be for any kind of deal to go through. It's tough enough getting big transfers over the line. When there's money and two players going the other way involved, then it creates even more problems. And we think that Chelsea actually broached the subject of Dusan Vlahovic earlier on in this transfer window, but the big stumbling block there was the wages. So that could still be an issue with regard to Vlahovic, even if they could agree a deal between the clubs. So it's still on. Talks are ongoing, but it's a very, very difficult deal.
Yeah, that seems like there's still a fair bit to go on that one. What about Jesse Lingard? News reaching us about him tonight, Michael.
Well, a year ago, he decided to join Nottingham Forest. That didn't work out the way he wanted it to. But what we can tell you tonight, his representatives have been in talks from clubs in England, Italy, United States and Saudi Arabia. But he remains a free agent. He's assessing all his options before making a final decision. So more on that as we get it. But Jesse Lingard, still a free agent.
All right. And just finish up with a managerial movement, because, of course, that affects the transfer window and things could be about to change at Wolves, Dharmesh.
Incredible situation. They've got 6 days until their Premier League Open on the Monday Night Football at Old Trafford against Manchester United. It's been a frantic summer and a disappointing summer with regard to incomings, because it's been a story of players leaving and Wolves trying to comply with financial fair play. Now there could be a change in manager. We're told that talks are ongoing over a mutual termination of Julian Lopetegui's contract at Wolves. Remember, he kept them up at the back end of last season. And we're told that Wolves are keen to speak to Gary O'Neill, who some say harshly lost his job when he kept Bournemouth up at the end of last season. So with 6 days to go, Wolves still wanting to bring in players, but they could have a new manager in situ at Old Trafford next Monday.
That is not ideal preparations for the season. Dharmesh, Michael, thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of The Transfer Show. Don't worry, we are back tomorrow at 5. And coming up after the break, we'll bring you more on that breaking story involving Chelsea. Stay with us.